Hello, everyone, and thank you to Simon for inviting me along to speak at today's event. So I'm Liz, as Joe's mentioned, from Imagineer and the National Brokerage Network, and I'm wanting to share with you some of the insights and experience that we've had in providing support brokerage. So thank you very much for sharing the slides. This is an image that we use to represent support brokerage, and as I go through what I want to talk about today, I'm hoping that the image begins to resonate with you a little bit and begins to make sense. So when we look at the health and social care system that we have, when we look at it historically, it's a system that has been organised around a focus on deficit, need, labels, and the diagnosis that people have. So it's based very much on the medical model and the professional gift model. But in our experience and the people that we have got to know along the way in the work that we've done, citizens generally don't want to be excluded from society and their lives defined by the labels that have been placed on them, and even the deficits that are perceived deficits. Even now, we do have a health and social care system that's organised in that way. And that leads to a loss of control, a loss of identity, purpose, a loss of presence, and a loss of self-worth. And in effect, that very approach builds a dependency on a system that's already in crisis and already overstretched. We all want to see and be part of vibrant and inclusive communities. But how do we achieve that? And one of the things that we quite often talk about is, how do we find the resource to make that happen? How do we fund it? How do we change that culture? But can we instead look at whether the resources are already there, the abundance of resources that are there, and just find another way of using them differently and realigning them differently? Support brokerage as a function is really built on a range of strength-based approaches that have been developed over recent years. And in the image itself, we've mentioned some of the strength-based approaches there. So person-centered planning, an approach to planning where we hear the person's voice, and it's about how they want to live, not about the services that are available to them, but what life means to them and what the essence of that life is as well. Looking at asset-based community development, where we look at connecting not on the basis of what's wrong, but on the basis of what's strong, what is there, how can people connect in a way that makes sense, in a way that has meaning. Local area coordination, and we've heard about that today, and how that brings strength to communities as well, and how funding that is there can be personalised so that it can be utilised by the person in a way that makes sense to them. So these approaches have been developing for some time and for some years. And in fact, when we say years, we actually mean decades, because support brokerage started in the late 70s, and some of these other approaches have started around about the same time. But we're 40 years on now, and our health and social care system is still struggling with the concept of relinquishing power and control and becoming a conduit for people to live a good life and to live a life that makes sense to them. Often those that access the social care system are asked to be realistic about what they can achieve, as people are expected to fall into the system's reality of sparseness as a result of the austerity that we've experienced over the last 10 years. So people are asked for their reality to become the reality of the austerity within our social care systems. And that ignores all the resources that are there for people. It expects people's lives to be underpinned by the funding that comes from the health and social care system, when we know there's much more than that. And we know as well that in recent years, the people that we work alongside and the people that we know, when they receive contact from a representative of the local authority and the local authority social work team, in a lot of instances, it does invoke a sense of anxiety and fear. And the very first question that people have in their mind is, what are they going to try and take back now? What are they going to try and cut from the support that I have in place now? And that's not the approach that we should see. That's not what people should experience. Now, it might seem that I'm speaking in very general terms, but it does represent the experience of many of the people and the families that we've worked alongside over the last 12 plus years. So it's representative of the stories and the experiences that people have. But within this, there has been real pockets and moments of inspiration where those that hold the statutory strings have radically changed their approach to do something that's right for the person, even when the protocols and the systems and the current agendas they work within do not naturally accommodate the approach. They've done it against the grain, and they've done it because it's the right thing, morally, ethically, and logically as well. So Support Brokerage does bring many of the solutions that we're looking for. As support brokers, we've brought that independence to help the person navigate through the complex health and social care systems to reach an outcome that's actually right for them. And I've got to say, sometimes that is not an easy task. It does rely on us being able to have some level of legal literacy, to be able to have focused negotiation skills and a detailed understanding of the processes and structures that are in place. And I do often wonder, how do people cope with this when they're doing this alone? How difficult and overwhelming this must be. Now, it sounds like all doom and gloom, doesn't it? But interestingly, it's not at all. And in our experience, there's a whole other and much bigger side to Support Brokerage, where there's light, warmth, possibilities, and real connection. And that is the community. That is where we find that part of Support Brokerage. And we find it in the wonderful way that people come together. People get creative, and people are committed to finding solutions. And that has always been a real source of inspiration and energy for what we do. Recognising how resources can be shared for common good and to reach the aspirations people hold. And when the conversations start with what a good life means for the person, and the focus is shifted to their strengths, skills, gifts, and followed up with people coming together to consider what is possible, it's then that we start an exploration of the people and places we know. Where is the knowledge, where's the skills, and the sources of support that make things possible. With this big picture view, the resources from the health and social care system actually become a very small part of a much bigger horizon. We have demonstrated time and again that with a person in the driving seat of their own lives, this approach supports people to achieve a life that makes sense to them, a life that they enjoy living, where their identity matters, and where they feel healthy and in control. Together, creating stronger connections in the community that are based on mutual interest and shared purpose. This leads to relationships that hold meaning and actually become enduring relationships. This approach also develops an awareness of people's rights and health in the health and social care system, so that when people do engage in the system, it is from a place of confidence and knowledge. And our motto as support brokers is that we know that we've served our purpose and our mission when we're no longer needed. And as a byproduct of this approach, people become less dependent on the statutory services as they begin to recognise the connections they have in the community. They avoid crisis situations and they make use of all the resources available to them. For us, the way that we see the future for social care is that the resources that fund health and social care needs to be placed safely in the hands of communities where that resources can be used for the greater good. There should be a complete stop to contributions for care. Access to care and support should be a universal right. So thank you for listening today. And if you'd like to know more about Support Brokerage, we have the website that was on the slide and also the email address if you'd like to get in touch. Thank you very much.